We demonstrated to our boys that we had fun and not churchy and, all buttoned up and, not being able to enjoy yourself and have fun as a believer, because we live here in the Dallas area, and it can, in our opinion, it can be a little stuffy. And we showed our boys that we ultimately, first and foremost, wanted them to have a legacy of faith, but not in the sense of they have to go to church, they have to do this, we wanted them, it's from, I think, both of our Young Life upbringing, and being on staff with Young Life, and that whole model of what Jim Rayburn said years ago, earn the right to be heard. And so we did that, and instilled that legacy of faith in both our boys. Hey, Shannon, how are you doing?
Hi, Chico. How are you?
I'm good. I know you're just in the other room, but it's wild to get on here and talk.
Well, I know, but I have been out of town, so we haven't talked much. So
yes, and then you got out of town, and then I went on a little men's retreat, and with our church, and Pastor Travis said, "Tell Shannon thank you." I go, I will.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you that I went. And
clearly, he hasn't been married long enough to understand that, I was telling my girlfriends, I was like, oh, yeah, Chico said, hey, I got asked to go on this men's retreat. And I mean, you get home on Thursday night and it's on Friday, but it's just one night. I mean, I said yes. Like, are you okay with that? And we all busted out laughing.
yes, go.
Are we okay with that? Yeah. I mean, even if we've come off of a 4-day reprieve,
yes,
of sorts. Anyway.
So yeah. he was kind, and that was good.
Yes, that's good.
Man, I'm sitting here today. You and I'm going to give a little shout out to Gina. I like Gina. We meet with Gina once a week. She helps us frame up these podcasts. And so if they're not framed up well, sorry, we'll just blame it on Gina. Or no. We need to maybe take ownership. We didn't follow some of her layout.
Well, no, good. Here's the thing. We've always been a little off the cuff because we are just coming from personal experience, work experience, all that kind of stuff. And so we need her to definitely frame up ideas and condense ideas. And she always has good questions to get us thinking about what we're talking about, because it might just make sense to you. And I think you and I have been married long enough that some things only just make sense to us. And then the rest of the world is it's like having every family has a crazy relative, but you don't, does the crazy relative think that they're the crazy relative?
Yes.
So sometimes when we talk, we are like, are we making sense, or is this just us? But she helps us say, yes, that makes sense. Yes, you need to talk about that. Yes, you should talk about that. She gives us validation that we should talk about things.
Well, and the other thing is she's talking to us about, okay, hey, what's your audience? And we're thinking our audience that listen to this, because we've gotten some comments and likes and stuff. And so a lot of times our audience is people like us, people our age, people that are, empty nesters or getting ready to be empty nesters or stuff like that.
Yes.
And so
they call it your demo.
Yes.
It's your demographic.
Yes, our demo. What is our demo?
Right.
But the great thing is, I don't know if it's great, but it was cool. Last week, it was just Gina and I. You were on your girls' trip, and I talked to her about this concept that we're going to talk about today, the actual what we're going to discuss, because I actually did a little talk on this at Mena Nehemiah on Tuesday night. We met with her last Monday, and then I told you about it, and then we kind of broke it down. And the cool thing about Gina is right in between our boys' age. So she is like this younger generation, and she's going, this is exactly what me and my friends want to hear. And so today,
and she's not even really our demo.
Yes, she goes, but maybe she'll tweet it out there or whatever.
I'm just kidding, yeah.
Talking about that. So our demo is, I'm 57, you're 55, just to remind people we're empty nesters. We have a 26-year-old son.
Well, and now they're talking about they've added, well, I say someone on the internet a couple has added a genius term, college nester, because we're still kind of a college nester. Like a full empty nester is when they are like,
launched.
And the college nester, it's funny because it's like talking
There's some
about
truth. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some truth to it. You're still kind of parenting, because what we're going to talk about is parenting a little bit. Yeah.
And so how I want to frame this up, and we have a 22-year-old, so we're still kind of college nesting. He asks a lot of questions. He's still, on the payroll. So
like, what's the code that you just got?
Yes.
So that he can unlock his computer or whatever.
Whatever. Yeah. And so I did a talk last week when you were gone, and I kind of framed it around. I've spent some time with this guy out in New York City. He's a pastor, John Tyson, and he had this quote. And I'm going to really read the quote and let y'all soak this in, because this is kind of what what our time today is going to be about in general terms. And what it is an inheritance is the possession you leave for others. A legacy is the difference you make in others.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between an inheritance and a legacy.
Yes.
And so an inheritance is possessions you leave for others.
Yes. And a legacy, and it might be actual financial possessions, it might be money, but those
Or
family
things or
family
jewelry
heirlooms and stuff like that. The family Bible. We got your grandmother's family Bible sitting out there that has been in your family for over 100 years.
Yes.
We don't use it. It's decorative. It's kind of cool.
It's not even decorative, Chico. Listen, we could go on a deep dive about family Bibles. It's where all the secrets are hidden. Like, I open it up. You can open it up and find interesting little newspaper clippings or things like that, and you get to solve the mystery, because that's how they used to use family Bibles, actually.
Yes. But so possessions is that. An inheritance is the possession you leave for others. A legacy is the difference you make in others. And so right there, it's like you and I, every single person on this planet is gonna leave a legacy for the people that come behind them. Now, we can leave a legacy for blessings, for good, or we can leave a blessing that's damaging, that's destructive. And so what is the
legacy, not a blessing?
Yes. What is the legacy you're going to leave? Because you can leave a legacy of blessing or good, or you can leave a legacy that can be damaging or very destructive.
You said blessing, but for both.
Yeah, but I'm saying legacy.
Yes,
but when we think about legacy, you can change that legacy. If you're my age, if you have in the past left a blessing that's left a legacy that's damaging instead of a legacy that's blessing, you can change that. You can change that today.
Right. Because I also think of like an inheritance as something that everyone can see. It's a little more tangible. It's things, it's possessions, maybe money. It's not necessarily, those things don't necessarily last for, stringing through a thread of time. Possessions can be lost, they can be stolen, you can lose money, you can, all of those things. They're more, an inheritance is a wonderful thing I hope to leave an inheritance to my children, just because of, memory and reading, but the legacy is less
It's not about even possessions. It's about the difference. It's truly about the difference you make in others.
Right,
And
and so
we
that's
want to make a
thread into
difference.
their
Yeah.
being. That is thread into their being where you may not be able you can't visually see it, necessarily, but it's there. It's fabric of their being. But and so you can start to build into a legacy at any time.
Yes. And so you can change if you've had a legacy that's been destructive, been absent. You can change that. And so what I want to do, Shannon, today is I want to read a letter that Travis, our oldest, left me. He left you a letter as well. He left, Beck a letter. You know, on May 27th, 2018, he graduated high school. And on May 28th, we packed him up. We did the graduation. We had a little party on the 27th, but he had to be in Austin because he was playing football at UT. He had to be down there that day. And so we packed up his truck. We drove down there. We drove the truck back. Didn't want him to have it that first year.
Right.
And it was, you do such a great job of organizing, and you got his room all organized, and we unloaded, and they had a whole system. And then we said goodbye, and man, tears, crocodile tears are coming down my face. I mean, you and Beck and I drove back, and when we showed back up at the house, I'm going to read you the letter that he wrote me. And so I think this has to do with legacy. I read it last week, and when I read this letter, I was crying in front of about 120 people with Travis there.
Yeah, it was part of your talk. Yeah.
I'm going to try not to cry. If I cry, okay, that's all right. But this is what it said. It was next to my bedside table, and I open it up, and it says, "Dear Dad, I'm writing this to be a thank you letter for many things. Thank you for the memories, wisdom, grace, and discipline you have instilled in me these 18 years. I know you went through a very hard time as a young kid losing your father, but God gave you another dad to help you. Though I will never understand what you went through, all I can share is how my experience with you changed me forever and for the better. I will always remember you telling me your car could fly as a kid and that you wouldn't show me until I was 18. Well, here I am. I'm 18 and about to leave for college. I know now that it wasn't the car that had superpowers. It was really you. Watching you thrive around other people by being yourself and never compromising your identity is what allowed me to be the confident man I am today. The man who isn't afraid of what people think of him, who is confident in his failures and perseveres through his trials. You had the perfect balance of discipline and trust to not only guide me in becoming a man, but also in allowing me to form my own identity and become the man I am today. I am not you, but I am who I am today because of the significant role you played in shaping me to take control of my future. Your unconditional love for Jesus showed me that you can be and love Jesus. You showed me it's okay to speak up for my belief and that the only life worth living is the one filled with Jesus. Though this is not the end, this is a mere step into becoming more independent. I will miss coming home and either watching the Spurs, NCIS, or Blacklist with you. I will miss going to hit golf balls with you or just spending time with you. College will be an adventure, a fun one for sure. But I will face many trials, and although most people might be afraid of what lies ahead, I'm prepared for anything because of you. Whatever you think, you are the best dad in the world, and you didn't miss a beat. I love you, Travis.
It's so sweet.
Yes.
Sorry, he was texting me actually because he's getting a mattress delivery that that young man that has grown into an adult is going to move out of our house for the second time.
Yes. So I doubt we'll get another letter. But when we talk about legacy and what we did as parents, yeah, both you and I talked about it last week with Gina. I talked about it with you this week. What we don't want to, we made many mistakes. And I think in that letter, you hear that, embracing failures and trials. We did not do life perfect by anything or parent perfect by anything. And there was
By any stretch. Yeah.
by any stretch of the imagination. But I did get that letter. You got a letter. If you liked that letter, we'll do another episode on your letter. But really, what it was and what our hope is today is to really talk about parenting. How did we do that? With the mistakes we made, with the trials, with the failures. If you hear in the beginning of that letter, I never shied away from the fact that, my biological dad died in 1979. I talked about the pain of that. I talked about how my mom remarried, 17 months later, and the granddad that both our boys knew, was my stepfather who adopted us.
Right.
And what a blessing that was. But also talking about just the struggles of being a teenage boy when at 12 years old my mom gets remarried, and just rebelling, and talked about those things. Talked about my alcoholism, talked about my addiction.
Yes. And I think what we're going to talk about today is not because we can't go back. And we're going to talk a little bit about some accidental parenting, and then what can you do now if you have most of our audience probably has adult children, so they're like, well, I don't need to listen to parenting, but we're really talking about legacy and how you can switch that up. I mean, the inheritance stuff is set. That's either you have it or you don't, and you leave it or you don't, but the legacy can be left at any time. And so you can start to auto correct it, but that is because we have done a lot of our own work. We and we were doing our own work from the get-go. I mean, I think even our premarital counseling situation, we made the decision to do several different types of premarital counseling because you were going to be a counselor. You had started, your work in that and knew the importance of it. But so some of the accidental parenting stuff that I like to call it, because we're not saying we were the best parents and we made all the best decisions. We're saying we were vulnerable people, I
Yeah,
think.
and we modeled going through trials, going through
Right.
failures. That happened, the whole time our kids were growing up. We had our kids. When you say accidental parenting, Travis is 26, 14 years ago, 16 years ago at 10, 12, even 12 years ago at 14, he did not get his first cell phone until he was 15 years old. Same thing, Beck was just shy of his 15th birthday. It's like
Right.
we did that because I did not want them to be exposed to having their phone and having the internet there. Now, did they like that? No. What Travis said about the discipline, he didn't like that discipline. Beck didn't like that discipline. They were the only ones in their whole middle school that
Right.
didn't have a cell phone.
And it did cause a lot of sneaking around, I think. I mean, Travis has always been able to work around a computer. Maybe it's because we put all these, he figured out how he could they could text. They had texting apps and things like that, and he could figured out how he could text from a computer, and you know, Beck figured out how he could communicate with an iTouch and all that stuff. And so we didn't come at it with a naivety, but we did stick to our plan.
And conviction. And even when they beat us down and they said, I'm the only one. Yeah, I mean, just wearing us out.
Right.
Even when they would
Because I
entice
don't
their
think you
friends
Yes.
into saying, Mr. West, Mrs. West, y'all need to get Travis a phone, or you need to get Beck a phone. All he's using is mine. I mean, we didn't bite the bait.
Yes, and we talked about that, at the risk of, people thinking that, oh, well, that people thinking that they have more control if they like give the phone, or they can monitor what they're doing instead of them sneaking around and lying and getting, some sort of text app or something like that. But really, that's kind of what we're going to talk about as far as legacy. You can't always control. So it's this false control. If people think, well, for safety reasons and for social reasons and everything else, we need to give them a phone, or we could use other examples that we have. I have tons of parenting examples, but
But when we talk about
yeah,
legacy, I like to look at it as what we have done. We've left a legacy. It's up to them, but we left a legacy of faith, of relationships, and of provision. And when you think in that letter that I left that legacy, that's just who I am. I am open about my faith in Jesus, and I showed we demonstrated to our boys that we had fun and not churchy and all buttoned up and not being able to enjoy yourself and have fun as a believer, because we live here in the Dallas area, and it can, in our opinion, it can be a little stuffy.
right,
And we
right.
showed our boys that we ultimately, first and foremost, wanted them to have a legacy of faith, but not in the sense of they have to go to church, they have to do this, we wanted them. It's from, I think, some of both of our Young Life upbringing, and being on staff with Young Life, and that whole model of what Jim Rayburn said years ago, earn the right to be heard. And so we did that, and instilled that legacy of faith in both our boys. Now, did they take to it when they were young? No, there was different times they rebelled against it.
Now, right. And I think, again, it's a release of control that it was only possible for me through my faith, first of all, and trust. And then also just doing the work through codependency and things like that, of the letting go. I mean, I wanted to control everything, and we can't. And so even when we're talking about when our kids are grown, adult children, a lot of times we're still in that mindset of trying to control their behavior, be kind of above them, like we're your parent,
A
respect your elders.
micromanager, manipulator, a mothering.
Yes, you need to do this because this is the way we've always done it. This is what your family does. And then we get into all that instead of having a self awareness and a self reflection of, is this the healthiest way to be in general? And am I really trusting the faith that I say I instilled? The world is filled with hypocrites, and
And
we
that's
can,
the one
as
thing we
parents, we
really
can look
wanted.
like major hypocrites
And did
always.
did our kids struggle? Yes. Did they rebel? Yes.
Yes.
But did we have expectations? Did we instill discipline? We believed for our kids not to drink or drug throughout high school. One of them, did complete that. The other one struggled with that.
Right.
But we made sure that that wasn't happening, in our house. Now, did we just, hammer them? No, but was there some resistance? Was there some conflict?
Because there was conflict, we did have lots of conflict, okay? And so we don't want to throw our kids under the bus or talk about them. All of that is for them. It's not for us to put out there. But let's just say there was conflict, plenty of conflict. But I think the legacy that we are leaving and the accidental parenting that we had because we had done our own work and we offered grace, our kids pretty much knew they could tell us anything. Well, not pretty much. They could tell us anything and we were still going to love them. Now, they had to face they had to take personal responsibility because they want to be their own person. So they had to take personal responsibility and there were consequences to all of their actions. But we stepped aside and let them walk through those consequences while loving them.
Yes, and what we did, what you were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
we didn't. You know, you were sharing. You need to do this, you need to do that. What we really took out of our language is we tried not to should on them or should on ourselves. Now think
Right.
about that. If you're listening, I try not to should on my kids or should on myself or should on you. What if you're listening or you're looking at me right now, you might be hearing something that I didn't say.
Right.
Okay. I did not say
It doesn't need to
shit.
be bleeped out. That
I did
does, but
not say shit. I said
okay.
should. Okay.
Yes.
And so
Should.
you should not do this. You should do that. It's like we got away from shoulding. We
Yes.
really changed that up. What we see is most parents, they should on their kids.
Right.
How come? Because their parents should on them.
Right.
And it's the should
And it's
pest.
self-preservation sometimes for parents because I couldn't help but I'm admitting in a very vulnerable way that when my kids did screw up and do things, I took it personally. I worried about what my image was going to be. I worried about what other people were going to say, like, oh, she's a horrible parent, or she doesn't really know what's going on, or she, like this whole, like, you want to control the image that you're putting out there. And, and especially with the internet. And I can't even, like, you just want to control the whole
And guess what? You don't have
thing,
that
and you
much
can't.
control.
No,
And
you
if we
don't.
come back
And
to
people don't think about you that much either. Like,
yes,
some of the biggest events in my life as a parent, probably others don't even remember.
yeah,
Like we sit here and think, oh, well, they're never going to forget this. Like this was big. It went down, blah, blah. And people don't really think about you that much, but it's important for me to think about my children because they are who I'm going to leave a legacy through.
well, and I think if you stop and pause, yes,
Yeah.
it's important to think about our children, but it's really important about, man, what the question, what kind of legacy, what is the legacy I'm leaving my kids?
Well, so that's what I mean. My actions, my reactions to consequences, my taking personal responsibility. Like, that's what I mean by,
Yeah, and so it's like a
worrying about our
legacy.
kids. That's
Yeah,
what I mean.
it's first and foremost, it's that legacy of faith. That's what you and I want to do is we want to leave a legacy of faith to our kids, and we have modeled that. That's from us doing our own work. And then the next one is that legacy of relationships. Our boys know the people that we confide in personally and as a couple. They have been a part of our life, and they get to see that interaction of the people that we believe in that are healthy, that have really instilled stuff in us that we can share with. But right now, there's so many people out there that are listening right now today. Do your kids know those relationships, the really healthy ones? Because also, when I think about that, my failures and my trials, Our kids saw my relationship with some old business partners of failures and trials, and they
Right.
saw us work through that. And I took ownership, for my part, but those are people that, hey, we had to model that we thought something different, and they demonstrated something completely different. And so we stepped back, and we discussed that, and they got to see that without us truly having a lot of evidence to shit on, and
Sh-
to
should on?
no, not to shit on, to shit on, but we didn't.
Yeah.
And so it's like, no, they see the healthy people in our lives that we instilled. And so part of leaving that legacy is leaving that legacy of who are the people that, when we are gone, that, hey, to reach out to model. Who are you going to stick with? In AA, when people first get sober, it says stick with the winners. And so are we going to stick with the winners? And for you and I, our community, our friendships have been people that, that are healthy, that are going to encourage and spur us on.
Yeah. Yeah. But, hopefully we're around long enough that, they have plenty of people themselves, but it's that vulnerability of them not, when you have a family where everything appears to be fine all the time, it's like, oh, we're
Effed
not
up,
gonna.
insecure, neurotic, and
Yes.
emotional.
Right.
That fine?
Yes, that fine. I mean, where you're just not gonna. It's some people probably would have the feeling of, well, I don't want my kids to see me sad. I don't want my kids to see me angry. I don't want my kids to see me struggling. I don't want to freak them out. So when that child actually has a struggle, because we will have struggles. I mean, that's biblical. There you will have trials in this world. You will, and I think everyone, if there is somebody out there listening that has never had a trial in their life, then I want to meet them. But we will. So, what are you saying to that child when they go through a trial? They think they're weird if they're struggling because they've never seen their parents struggle. So they're going to think the people that are closest to them under their roof, if they never see them sad or struggle or verbalize in a healthy way, doing self awareness work, doing work on themselves, if they never see that, then they're going to think they're weird and that they don't fit in and that they're a misfit, and then that leads to just like anxiety and depression and identity crises and everything else. And so what kind of legacy is that? If you think you're protecting people from hard things, you think you're protecting them from that, and then they don't feel normal.
Well, it's not a safe place.
Right.
It's not that place where, hey, if you're not opening up, and there's a balance, but as your kids get older and stuff like that, it's like you got to be vulnerable. That's the one thing that is a legacy that we have left in our boys,
Yeah.
is that ability to be vulnerable. When I was on that men's retreat, that's what one of the talks was about, is men don't know how to be vulnerable. And I'm sitting there, I kept my mouth shut, which was, hard for me.
Yes.
Uh, but I'm going, no, my boys know how to be vulnerable. My wife, I know how to be vulnerable. It's like
Well,
most people don't.
they know how to talk through it. Like I have received a call recently um from Beck, who is going to graduate, and he's just like wanting to process things with me. And I'm able to process things with him without feeling like, oh gosh, I need to should on him. I need to should on him. You should do this. You should do that. You should, because I can kind of see, I know what happens after you graduate from college and you have your first job or first, experience out of college. I know what that's like because I did it. But I would resent when my dad would say things like, well, I've been there before. You should do this. You should do that. You should, you know, he should it on me, but it's out of care and concern. But I think we have modeled not shoulding on others well enough that now he can call me and process with me with things, and I can just leave him with, well, I don't know. I mean, here's the pro of this, here's the con of this. You're allowed to change your mind.
Or that's you're having some hard decisions.
Or
That's tough.
yeah, wow.
Hey, I'm here to listen.
Yeah.
I
Like,
don't
sucks to
need to
be you
say,
right now. I don't,
yeah,
I mean,
I don't need to fix it. I don't need to
no.
do anything. And so that's the cool thing. And talking about what parents, tend to do, even with their adult children, and what we're trying to say, change the legacy. Change the legacy. If you have adult children that are out on their own, that are even out of college, is stop shooting on them. Stop. Don't make things, if they're kind of building a little distance from you.
Right.
Don't say, well, when you have kids, and
Right.
I just can't wait till you have kids. I mean,
Right.
that statement is so shaming and condemning and guilt-ridden. It's like, oh, I can't wait till you have kids and you
Right.
experience this. It's like, come on,
And when talking about the guilt is that I think that you can build a legacy of real like love and hope and pass it on to generations of people if you can take the guilt tripping and then the like
comparing.
need for your children to meet some sort of emotional need in you. You need to grow up and be the parent, be the adult in the hierarchy of, life, and go figure your stuff out. Go do some personal inventory and not, if your kid doesn't want to spend Christmas with you, then you can't say anything about it except that is your decision. This is going to be hard for people to listen to. So
Yeah. But
because
I don't want you to hold back.
people
I
want
want you to go.
well, I know people want to control I get Christmas or I get Easter or you need to be with me because I'm not going to be around forever.
You're gonna really miss me.
Right, you're gonna miss me, and I raised you, and whatever. And then also remember, since the Super Bowl was just this past weekend, not when this airs, but when we're recording, I was like, Travis is living under our roof, and I said, we both said, what are you doing for the Super Bowl? And he said, I'm going to go watch it at a friend's house. And I was like, oh, I was kind of relieved because I was like, oh, I don't have to cook wings and do whatever, which I would have done. But I had to remember back. I didn't have to remember back. I remember back. I didn't want to watch the Super Bowl with my parents.
Yeah.
I love them.
Woman.
I like being with them. I like hanging out with them on holidays and birthdays or whatever. But I don't want to watch the Super Bowl with them. I want my own life.
Not to put the pressure on our kids to meet something inside us.
Right.
And so I did, when you went and changed, Travis did call me back, and I want to use this example. He said I could.
Okay.
And so you and I have done a lot of our own work. I'm going up to on-site next week, to be in my men's group. I've gone and done the Living Centered program. You've gone and done the Living Centered. You and I refer a lot of people there. I do some work for them. I love the program.
Right.
A little over a year ago, Travis called me and goes, Dad, I want to go to on-site. Can you make that happen? I go, sure, son, I'll make that happen. I go, I want to do what you and mom did, the Living Centered program. And I
Yeah.
go, okay, that's cool. I go, can I just ask one question? How come? This gets back to legacy right here.
Right.
This gets back to the difference you make in your kids. And sometimes we don't even know we're making a difference.
Right.
And what he said, because I've seen the change in you and mom, and I want that change. And
Yeah.
so it's like us doing our own work. What is the drivers? What's holding us back is like, wow.
And then he said when he got back, I said, well, what'd you think? Because if you go that they want you to take time to process it for yourself. You don't have to regurgitate or talk about it or tell anybody or whatever. You just get to process yourself. And I said, so what did you think? And I knew it would just be like a one sentence answer. And he said, I want everyone I love to do that.
Bam. So on site, if you're hearing this, boom, right there.
Yeah.
Throw Shannon and Chico's filter optional up there.
Commercial.
Yes.
Yeah. No. So.
And it doesn't have to be on site. It doesn't have to be.
But
those
he
things.
was open. He was open to working on himself. And I think that's what, so when you see these adults that are going no contact with their parents now, Oprah did a big podcast special on it. And there's all this talk about it. And there's kind of, I guess, debates and discussions for both sides. But both sides need to be willing to do the work.
Or what we like to call the
For
messy
it
middle. To learn
right.
how to step into the
Yes.
messy middle. To learn how to unpack, to be a place that's safe. To have disagreements.
Right.
To do your own work. And I like what you're saying is both sides have to do their work. If one side's not willing to look at their part and just put the blame, I don't know.
Right. And so no contact can be healthy. I try to encourage people, including clients that you're coaching, and we can talk a little bit about the coaching aspect of it. It's not I'm not digging deep into their child, family of origin or childhood or anything like that. That's what a therapist does. But in the coaching, I encourage them just to condition themselves, train themselves, coach, themselves. And so at some points, I think no contact can be an healthy option if they are going to do their work. And it can be a time period. It doesn't have to be a permanent thing. And it also is not an excuse to avoid the messy middle and avoid doing work on yourself. You're like, if you could just get rid of everyone that causes you pain and discomfort in your life and then be happy, you could go no contact with everybody. I could go no contact with you for a second.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, Chico, I need to go no contact for a minute. Like, I mean,
but that's not healthy.
Not working on myself.
Yeah.
And then the parents, but if an adult child decides to go no contact, they need to be willing to tell the parent that they're doing that and that and not worry about the reaction or action of the parent, because then it's up to the parent to do their own work to figure out what would lead to and why, where can we meet in this middle and figure it out.
Yeah.
But they have to do their own work. And a lot of each side is not necessarily always willing to go and meet in the middle to do the work.
And guess what? That's what we call doing our own work, the messy middle. That's what we call those conversations that are uncomfortable. It's messy. You and I did an episode on this, and you didn't like that word messy because you're very organized. And it's uncomfortable. And so that's why I really like talking about the mess, because life is messy. Raising kids is messy. Having families, relationships, all those things are messy.
And you don't have to stay in that. You don't have to stay. Nothing has to be permanent. You don't have to stay in the messy middle. You don't have to stay in no contact. You don't have to stay in these places, but if you are digging deep and getting healthy, then the no contact and the space and the messy middle, you'll come out on the other side. Like,
and see the other person that you want to have no contact with, as a child of God, as someone that, is,
right.
and you'll learn about boundaries. You'll learn about what it is that you need to do to take care of yourself, and not put up walls, because walls are not boundaries.
Right.
Rules are not boundaries,
Or expectations
or expectations
are not boundaries.
are not boundaries. And so it's like all of a sudden you do that. So when Travis said those things to you and to I, it's like he wants everybody, because he feels safe, seen, and heard. Do your adult children feel safe, seen, and heard? Can you have a conversation about, holidays? Can you have a conversation about, things without shooting on them?
Right. And the should and the guilt and things like that are conversation stoppers. Like,
Boom.
The second you should know that, you've raised these adult children. And so you should have the confidence, not you should, that's me shitting on people, but when you start you should do this or guilt them into things, then it's a conversation. The other person is going to move out of the mess and go no contact.
Well,
Like, it's a conversation
and they might
stopper.
go no contact, but most people, what I see, yeah, there's some people that do no contact, but most people try. What happens is these adult children try to take care of their parents' feelings. They jump in there and they're feeling this.
Well, listen, they go into that. It's like the episode before, the fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. Your nervous system, when somebody shoulds on you or guilt you, your nervous system goes into one of those four things. And so the no contact is flight.
Yes.
The fight is angry words that you regret.
Yes.
Like, I don't care that you're my mom. You suck at it, and I don't want to talk to you, and I don't want to be with you on Christmas because you're not fun, and I don't ever want to see you. I mean, that's the fight. And then the fawn is the codependent. Like, okay, I'll just go spend time with them, and I don't want to, and it's awkward, and it sucks, and whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And so going back to,
so it's not healthy.
This letter is like, though I will never understand what you're going through, all I can share is how my experience with you changed me forever and for the better. And what he's talking about is me being open, vulnerable, and honest with him about how I grew up. The man who isn't afraid of what people think of him, who's confident in his failures and perseveres through his trials. I mean, this letter blows me away. I have read it several times, and this is the first time I didn't cry reading it, because it's like a dream to have your son see that way. But I see him that way. Our other son, who years ago looked at me and dropped the F-bomb, you're not my effing, counselor.
Oh, right.
And all of a sudden, it's like a few weeks ago, and he's done this several times over the last several years, is he's had me talk to his buddies, who are just struggling with life, nothing drug or alcohol or stuff like that. It's just like, he's reached out. He goes, Dad, I know you can talk to him. He trusts you. Will you find that time?
Well, that was yeah. And that was his manipulation at the time. He was like, you're not my fucking counselor or whatever. And then, but you're like, this is not, you said to him one time, you said, it's not counseling, it's parenting. Yes. But he didn't want any rule. He wanted to live life on his terms, always still does. So, but now we've stepped into the messy middle with him, with both our kids, I think, but with him, and now there's a mutual respect in our conversations. Like, respects where we're coming from, because we don't shit on him, and we respect where he's coming from. And,
It's good. And so
yeah.
so for everybody out there that is listening to this podcast is like we want to encourage you to have a legacy that it makes a difference in others, because you're going to make a difference. And if you're shitting on them, you're making a difference of resistance. You're making a difference of damage.
Well,
But if
and
you start making a legacy, of faith,
I think you have
relationship,
to
and
make a
provision.
commitment to do your own work and quit
Boom.
focusing on what they're doing, because what they are doing is we hesitate to always use that right, wrong, good or bad situations. It's healthy and unhealthy. They might be operating in an unhealthy way because they're younger, obviously, because they're our kids or whatever. They're younger. They are less experienced and whatever else. They might be operating in an unhealthy lifestyle situation, but so are we. And so concentrate on ourselves, get ourselves perfectly healthy, and then everything else might fall into place because
And guess what? That's why the legacy of faith, relationship, and provision, the legacy of relationship is find people that you can be honest and open with, that you can be vulnerable with, and check your thinking with your adult children. Check your thinking with, hey, people that have gone ahead. How did you navigate these new waters?
right.
Those kind of things. That is healthy. I've loved it when you've talked about, your friend who has a married son now and how to just do Christmas.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's like check those out, listen to others.
And just
Man,
listen and
and
decide. Yeah.
get curious, all right? Well, until next time.